I'm going to the ground. Guys, I just did the dumbest thing. Let's try it with the four-wheeler. Hey guys, Thomas here with the Harlan Project, and welcome back to the channel. I am holding what might be the most controversial and debated topic in gravel driveway construction. Do you need it, or is it just a waste of money? We're going to answer that question in today's video. I have experience using a woven and a non-woven filter fabric on this property in a road gravel parking lot type of application, and it has been the game changer for the soft soils I have here. I'll show a quick clip right here of a situation where this particular road went underwater. I'm going to tell you more about that later, and I'm even going to dig up a small part of that road and show you the filter fabric underneath it. I think that story alone will create a very compelling case for why you want to consider using a filter fabric. A few weeks ago, I put out a video on YouTube discussing the different types of aggregate material you might want to consider for your gravel driveway or your parking space. And in that video, I used a filter fabric. And that video is done really well. It has over 150,000 views today, has over 500 comments. And the filter fabric kind of stole the show. And I had 3 sets of comments going on. Most of them were very kind, and it was actually really interesting because it was somebody just talking about their experience in road development or driveway development, and maybe what they call a certain material in their region in the Northwest, which is a different name in the Northeast. And those were fun comments to read, and I think helpful for all the viewers. But there were 2 other types of comments, and that was, you have to use filter fabric. It's a must, it's a game changer. I love it, and here are the reasons why. But then the other camp was, that is an absolute waste of money. And to quote, I think, one commenter, that is nothing more than a landscape project. And I just couldn't disagree with that comment more. I think that this would never be a waste in any application. But do I believe it's necessary in all applications? No, I don't. So I have another gravel trailer parking spot that I need to tackle, and I reached out to Vevor and asked them if they would be willing to send me some of their filter fabric. And they were kind enough to do so. They actually sent me this 12.5 by 50 foot driveway rated filter fabric. So this is not their landscape fabric. This is much heavier duty. And from a touch, I can tell you that is the case. This is a 3.5 ounce material, and they say it's rated at 600 pounds tensile strength. What does 600 pounds of tensile strength actually mean in, well, layman's terms for a guy like me? We're gonna see if we can rip this thing. We're gonna do a puncture test. We're gonna put some stress on it. And ultimately, why you guys are gonna wanna stick around is I'm gonna build 2 4-foot by 4-foot test pads. One of them is gonna have road base and road base alone, and the other one is gonna have this filter fabric below the road base. I do want to clarify that Vevor has not sponsored this video, nor have they paid me for any of my conclusions or statements that I've made. They've simply provided this fabric, which as of the date of this video is listed at $33 on their website. They have all kinds of sizes in both woven and non-woven fabric, and I have a special discount code for you guys that is VEV5OFF. Be sure to use that. I will have that listed in the link of the description as well as the first row of the comments. I don't know what 600 pounds of tensile strength means, but I know it means I can use it to train for the world's strongest competition. Did I even move it a little? Well, since my muscles disappointed me, let's try it with the four-wheeler. Oh yeah, baby! So can it hold 215 pounds like a hammock? You know how hammocks go, right? You fall. I'm off the ground. I'm going to the ground. But, ooh, look, we are getting some tears. After those 2 tension tests, they're doing really good. But there are some little minor tears in the fabric here, and here, and one here. But I'm not even so sure that didn't start from these clips. Now on this side, I just used a tree saver and kind of rolled it around on itself, and I can't see any tears in the fabric. So again, that might just be caused by those clips. Okay guys, how about a simple drop test with what would be akin to a number 4 rock? I don't see anything. And what if that number 4 rock's already laying down and more rock fell on top of it? All right, holding up well. Now what if that number 4 rock had a car drive over it? Nothing. Now what if the car turned its tires on top of those rocks? We have a tear. There it is, right there. Now whether you want to use this as a tow rope or a hammock or a method for making rocks smaller, this filter fabric was not designed for that. So none of these tests really mean anything, but I do think they show you that this is far from just a landscape fabric, and it's quite durable. Obviously with 4 inches or 6 inches of material over this, your tires would never have the opportunity to touch this fabric, and any movement on that top layer of soil would be buffered by the soil underneath. One common misconception about this woven fabric is that it's like a tarp and it just does not drain, and so therefore it's actually going to cause a bigger problem for you, because as it rains on your gravel driveway, the water has nowhere to go. So I've set up a simple test just with a garden hose. We're not going to flood this, but we are going to put water on here and we're going to see how it drains through. Now this is not a non-woven fabric that is meant to drain water much faster. So I do recommend you guys look at both products, because depending on your application, you may find the non-woven product to be a better suit than the woven product. You guys can see the water going in. I've got this at a slow speed only because I don't want to fill this up so much that it tears and then I can't use it. The idea is that we're demonstrating, can the water actually drain? Now as you can see, the water is actually flowing through this at a pretty good pace. Now whether you decide to use a woven fabric, a non-woven fabric, or none at all, you need to be thinking about drainage for your gravel driveway or parking lot. Putting some type of crown in the middle of that road or driveway is going to help that water go from the surface to the sides, and then at that point, ideally you would have some type of drainage swale that would take the water away from the driveway or parking lot in some direction. That will help with erosion. So drainage is key no matter what, whether you use this or not. But I think this simple test shows that any water that does make it through the top layer of soil is going to drain through just fine. Guys, I just did the dumbest thing, but perhaps it does illustrate why I like to use this fabric on my soils. I'm on high and dry land, correct? Well, I set down my camera on my tracks, and when I backed up, well, I forgot it was there, and this camera literally went around the track until it fell behind the track, and as you can see, the track print ran right over it. So I probably maybe did not break my camera. Holy crap, it still works. Yep, if you guys can see this image, that camera still works. But this is crazy. Come here, let me show you. You probably can't appreciate this hole in the ground, but look at this. That's how soft this ground is. My camera was shoved right into the ground, okay, from the track. So I guess I'm thankful I have soft soil, but come on, this is what I'm talking about. As with any gravel road or parking lot project, you would strip away the grass. So we're doing that here. We want to create a level pad area of native soil. I don't want to leave the grass because I don't want the grass to be its own soil separator like the fabric claims to be. So we want to start with raw native soil for both pads. So the goal of these pads is so that I can drive my truck on here, and my axle width is about 68 inches. So I don't need this to be perfect, but what I do want, well darn, I think I hit it perfect right there. Close enough. My idea is that when I pull my axles on here, I want my tires in the center of both of these pads. So that way they're both getting a fair chance and a fair balance of having that material packed in around where all the weight will be centered. And that way when we do a turn test, it's got the material all around it to sort of hold it and lock it in place. That's the idea anyway. Now some of you guys are going to say I'm not doing this right because I need to remove all of this bad soil and I need to replace it with a larger stone or a good material. And guys, I'm doing the same test on both sides. So If I move 12 to 18 inches of this nasty soil, I'm going to hit 12 to 18 inches of more Samsula muck that's below there. And then I got to export all of that. Some of you guys will say, oh, you just lose it there and lose it there. Well, not everybody has that luxury. Not everybody has the equipment. Not everybody wants to haul that off. Some people just want to work with what they have. And it doesn't matter, it's an equal test. We're doing the same thing on both pads. I got some low spots here, and so I'm gonna bring in just a little more material because it's an imperfect test, but I do want it to be as close to fair and balanced as possible. It's amazing how soft this stuff is. It just moves out of the way to allow the other material to come right in. So if you guys aren't familiar with the term pumping, any of you site contractors and road builders, you guys know about that. And this ground doesn't pump per se like gumbo does, but when it's wet, it really doesn't firm up. I mean, it just slides around on you. It just moves around. But if you don't know what pumping is, throw it in YouTube or Google. I'm sure somewhere you can find a really interesting video. I got delivered, and I'll show you on my road project up at the front. I got delivered clay with gumbo in it. They started putting it in, and not really knowing what I had at the time, tried to level it and spread it the best I could. And you would drive over that stuff, and it was like a waterbed. I mean, you could literally watch the ground sort of roll like an ocean wave right around the tires. Look it up, it's crazy. Guys, it's the next day. It is hot out here, and so this has had some time to set up and dry out a little bit, and it feels hard on my feet. Of course, I don't know if that's hard enough for a vehicle, and I don't know. I guess I'm gonna try to make this scientific by using this little moisture reader here and see what it says. 17, 18%. Let's put it in a few different areas. 22%, 22%, 16, 17, 18%. Oh, that went all the way to 32. 23, 20. Totally imperfect test. Here, let's put it in the nasty stuff. yeah, it just skyrockets to bad news, okay? I wish it said that. We're gonna pull the truck on, and we're gonna find out if we can see any measurable difference between the road-based pad on native soil versus the one that has the filter fabric underneath. Before I do want to answer one question I'm anticipating at least one of you have already asked yourself, which is, why is he doing this down by his lake? Of course, near a lake, you're gonna have mucky, soft soil. Why wouldn't you do it somewhere else? And let me provide some context, guys. This was not always my lake. There's a horse stable right here. This actually is a horse pasture that a horse used to live on happily on dry ground. And in fact, the path you're looking at, I could drive my truck through here on stable soil right out of my back gate with a heavy trailer, and I've done that before. And so this was not always a lake. Hurricane Milton brought the water up, brought it way up. If you've been watching this channel, you've heard Hurricane Milton a lot. It's because it's created a lot of havoc. Where I'm standing, that water would have been at my waist. If you look behind me, and it might be hard for you to see, but where that chain is on that fence post back there, there's a water line. That's how high the water was, and that water was here for a long time. And this once stable ground became the very soft, mucky mess that it is today. So that leads me to this destination, because I said to myself, what if I had put a road in here? What if I just put down 4 to 6 inches of road base right through here, which was my rear exit? What would have happened when all that water came up? Would it have survived? Would it have just sunk right down into the native mucky soil that's here, and I would have just lost it? Or would a filter fabric actually help prevent that? So hopefully this test will provide some evidence to answer that question. At a glance, I don't see anything that would suggest one has performed better than the other. Looking at the compaction track, it's about the same depth, the same compaction, and with some margin of error, knowing that I didn't do this with a plate compactor, but with a hand tamper.
So here I'm just mimicking a static turn, and really both pads performed similar. The tires just saw cut their way through that top layer of material, and part of that is this stuff is just fresh. It's not compacted very well. and it just hasn't been seasoned where it's just been rained on and driven on over and over again. So the only thing left to do, let's add water and weaken this material and see which one gives up first.
I took the form boards off because I'm trying to make these pads more vulnerable. They're actually both performing very well, and I think it says a lot about a good road base where you've got the fines and the larger rock mixed together. As I took the sides off, you can start to see some of the soil mixing where the organic is coming through, and that's just not happening over here. And that is because of the filter fabric. Well guys, up to this point, the results are almost inconclusive. Both have performed very well. There's perhaps one exception where there was a failure, and that's on the pad without the fabric down here in this lower left corner. You can see where that water's pooled up, and that's where my driver's side tire got to the edge of that pad, and when I was turning it, kind of pushed some of that material out. Now, the same thing did happen on the other pad where the fabric is, except the fabric, because it's there, did not allow any of that soil underneath to come up. In fact, when I pulled it back, you could see there was a clear separation. There was no breach of that barrier. Whereas over here where there's no fabric, I could actually start to see some of that black muck coming up and mixing with the bottom of that road base. Although I do recognize that's where the material has gotten much thinner. But this is a very short-term test too. This isn't, you know, rain, drive over, rain, drive over, rain, drive over, drive over, drive over, drive, you know what I mean? Day in and day out. Been fooling with this for like 20 minutes. So I wanted to ratchet it up a little bit. And so I'm making rain with a sprinkler. It's been running about 20 minutes. I'm gonna shut it down and we're gonna do the same test again. See if that's changed anything.
Earlier in the video, I mentioned a clay soil I called gumbo and how it will pump and how that looks kind of like waves at the beach. And look closely as my tires are rolling over this material, and you'll see the material compress down and then sort of rebound after the tire passes. This is kind of like pumping. It's just a mini version of it. Now here's where I need you guys to comment below and help me. Can you tell if either one of these is performing better? Can you tell if either one of them is pumping more or less? Comment below.
I would say we actually have some results here that are conclusive, and I'm gonna say that if you're pro fabric, you're probably gonna agree with them, and if you're anti-fabric, you're not gonna agree, because I will admit, it's not overwhelming. Let's just start in the middle where I would say it's probably very competitive. I don't know that there's been a whole lot of additional sinking here relative to here. I mean, I don't know, guys. It's pretty minor. I would say that this one feels a little spongier under my feet, and I'm wondering if it's because that material is thinning out, and as I'm going over it, like you're massaging cookie dough with the tires, as I'm going over it and it's mixing with that softer soil, it has the ability to move around because it doesn't have the fabric to keep it above that soil. And I'm wondering if this is starting to thin to the point where it's feeling softer. There's no way that you can feel what I can feel under my feet through that lens. You're just gonna have to trust me. And if you don't, I don't know what else to say about that. But I think it is a little bit easier to tell that there is a difference as we get to the edges. Starting with the pad without the fabric, you can see it's just mixing. It's just what it's doing. Again, there's nothing underneath this to keep it from lowering. And so you can see as my tire got to the edge, it just blew out where there was no support. Up here it survived because it had good material to support it underneath. Whereas here it just let go, and here's the reality of it, guys. Look, that's black, mucky stuff. That's not, it's mixing. Okay, if I dig down, that rock, look, you can't, there's There's no rock in the native soil. So when I dig over here and I get rock mixed in with that native soil, all right, that's what's happening. It's mixing. And my guess is it's actually happening in the middle under there too. And over time, it would as well. Same thing out here, guys. Look, it's just mixing. Look, that's what's going on here. So you can start to see where it is starting to lose itself underneath the top layer. Now let's compare that to where the fabric is. Obviously with the fabric, it prevents it from being able to sink and go underneath. So if I lift this up, look, there's no mixing. In the same way, if I come up here, there's no black soil. There's zero mixing here. And up here, you don't have that same level of blowout to the side because this fabric is preventing it from going down. Okay, again, same thing here. The fabric kept it from sinking, so it did not mix. And you can even see the depression in the ground from the weight. But the fabric did its job by keeping the hard stuff above that. Okay, same thing here. It is just noticeably different how this performed compared to right there. After that last test, which I would argue was a rather extreme test. I mean, these were flooded conditions where I was doing static turns, something like you would do if you were backing up to your trailer and just needed to get your ball over an inch or something. That's typically where you're doing that static turning. But pretty extreme. I mean, this was a soupy mess, and neither one of these would pass for a flat parking lot anymore. They would all need some type of work, some type of box blade work or something to smooth them out. Although, I think in a professional design and not just a test pad, you'd probably have better drainage so you wouldn't get these potholes and you wouldn't get this soupiness. But hey, we can't control Mother Nature, and sometimes it just drops buckets of water on us and this stuff happens. What I will say is, what we've done here is that the one with the fabric is holding up a little better. I know that that's going to hurt some feelings, but especially around the edges. Of course, on the other hand, you could argue if you had a full width driveway or full width parking lot, you wouldn't need to get your tires that close to the edge. And I'd say, yep, you're right. That's a fair argument. So, you know, guys, I think the biggest problem, if you will, variable that's missing from this test is time. This is a short-term test. That's the reality of it. I've done all I can with this short-term test, but I do have a long-term test that I can share with you. I'm going to take you up there now. Let's go look at that road I was talking about. So I'm standing on what is road base on, I call it my road, but it really is just a driveway extension that I built after Hurricane Ian and Nicole. Those were two hurricanes in 2022 that came back to back, and it brought my lake level up almost to about, I would say, right here. Now that's important. I'm gonna insert a picture of my truck stuck pulling my boat right here, and just take a look at how the ground is graded. That's important. We're gonna talk about that more in just a minute. I'm gonna ask for your guys' forgiveness for how terrible all this looks. A lot of this is just lake weed because this was literally flooded over for months. I mean, literally, that was a seawall up there. Originally, when this retaining wall went in, it was the seawall. I could drive a little boat right up to it and cleat off to it, go fishing for the day. It's always been more about function than beauty, guys, because as you saw in that last picture, my truck was stuck. I had to be able to get in and out of here with my boat and my trailers and my truck. And when I originally started building this and put the material down, that's where I had that clay dumped in. You can actually see up to the front, I got a little bow in this wall. And that's because when the skid steer was putting in the material and putting in some of that gumbo, that clay, terrible, terrible mistake. But that's what the driver brought, and that's what they started to put in. And that wall got pushed out because literally the skid steer was sliding through that gumbo and hit the wall. But there are dead mans all the way inside of here, and likely why that this wall hasn't given out, because all of this soil is incredibly mucky. Let me show you a clip here of what's below my feet. And what you're gonna see is the crushed concrete for about 3 inches. Now that's compacted, and then below that you're actually going to see 2 to 3 inches of yellow sand. All that is just a little sandy clay mix. It's a good builder's sand that we have here locally, and if you look all the way at the bottom, you'll see something black. that black item is the woven fabric, and that is all throughout this road below my feet. And that's, guys, that's where this really gets interesting. And by the way, shout out to another Vevor product. That's my pond aerator. Paid for it with my own money. Went totally underwater and still working. Love that thing. But that fabric doesn't come this far out. And if you've been following this channel for a while, then you know that I produced a video where I actually regraded all of this. I actually brought in a whole truckload and raised all of this up. If you look over here, you can see how the ground kind of falls off. Well, it wasn't always that way. This actually fell sharper, and that was never a problem because, well, the water was always out there. But when the water came up and completely flooded this over, this was underwater and that soil was underwater. And you see my truck and my dump trailer here? I was going over this road continuously. And what held up was the material that's on the fabric. The part that didn't hold up was where the fabric wasn't. And if you say it's because it was native dirt, you're wrong. Because that crushed concrete actually came all the way out to here. You can kind of see this edging here. Okay, my road used to come all the way out to here, and that was crushed concrete all the way in here. The difference was when that fabric initially went down, it stopped right here. And it stopped right here because this is where the road initially stopped, because there was a giant oak tree right here. That oak tree drowned after Hurricane Nicole, so we had to take it out. That's why the road, or the retaining wall, stopped short. Well, after that oak tree was gone, I said, well, let me just push the road a little further, because I do like this for a parking spot. And so that's when I pushed it out to here. But when I did that, I didn't continue the fabric. And when that water came up and it loosened all this soil up, that muck soil that you see me walking through and that you saw where we built those pads, it just mixed with the crushed concrete. There was no filter fabric to create the soil separation. And it didn't happen overnight, guys. It happened over time of driving on it and massaging that good material with that soft, mucky soil. And I said a similar statement in my gravel video that I made, and I got a lot of, you don't know what you're talking about. And I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not trying to pick an argument. I mean, no fabric, fabric. Same route, held up. Didn't hold up. Got stuck over there, didn't get stuck here. Guys, I have not done one single thing to this road. This nasty vegetation you see, that's lakeweed, because this was all underwater. Anyway, I hope you guys found value from this video, and I'd love to hear from you guys. I mean, really, this is a controversial topic, and depending on where you are at, this fabric may be necessary or it may not be necessary. But I really want to hear from you. Provide your comments below. Tell me what you guys think. Tell me if you were against fabric, if anything I've stated here changed your mind. Again, these comments are of value to not just me, but to all the viewers who read them. So guys, thank you for watching. If you like this, do me a favor and smash that like button and think about subscribing. We do all kinds of DIY projects. And guys, remember, spend time with your creator. He wants to hear from you. Ask him for help. Thank him. He loves you. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.